see both Maersk and UPS as far as moving goods, phenomenal companies. But, Mr. White, in your testimony, you said that blockchain technology could increase global trade by up to 15%. That's a phenomenal figure, and certainly we want to move that forward. One barrier to the widespread adoption of blockchain technology is the linking of the physical object to the digitization. Can you guys, Mr. White and Mr. Rubio, can you all elaborate as how we can actually make that happen, how we can link those physical dots connect?
I think it's well cited. Actually, during our evaluation of supply chains, we looked at some of the most sort of complex supply chains, as I mentioned. You have a challenge of both the physical end-to-end transport of the goods, which is one thing, and the visibility of the events, the real-time access of that information as to where that container, in our case, is physically located at any one point in time, and then the disconnect that we see from a paper-based documentation flow. So linking the two of them together with digitization, so you have the opportunity to have more real-time visibility as to where a shipment is. So with our platform, we have a shipping information pipeline, so we can actually see more events of what's happening with that container, for everything from when it's out gate empty for loading to when it's stuffed to when it's back at a terminal facility to when it's loaded on board a vessel and onto any transshipment through customs clearances on both end game delivery, but also having the capability with this platform to have digitized documents. As Mr. Rubio has said, it enables us to have them in a structured way in a format that the government agencies require so that they can actually process them. So you have the capability of having both together. In our supply chain evaluation, the one shipment of avocados I mentioned was a 34-day end-to-end transit from when it was actually farmed at the farm and then put to the truck to be loaded into a container until it was end up being delivered. In that 34 days, 14 days, 2 weeks of it was sitting there waiting for documentation, for processing. So you've got an opportunity to actually improve supply chain cycle times and the efficiency. As I mentioned, over 200 individual exchanges of document and information. With the certifications that were required, they actually are stamped by one authority and moved by courier by motorbike to another authority for another stamp and then come to the port. So you're physically moving documents instead of transmitting electronically.
Mr. Rubio, you want to weigh in on that?
Sure, yes. The big challenge, of course, is making the physical world connect with the information world, and that really is a key challenge that will need to be overcome in order to achieve the ends that you're asking about. But there are technologies that can speak to the data, like RFID, as I mentioned, and potentially even X-ray technology. So X-ray technology, you know, the possibilities exist for interpretation of X-rays to understand what's actually in a carton, and then leveraging that information with what's physically been communicated by the different players in the supply chain can then further support the validity of what has been claimed on the transaction. So those are kinds of techniques that can be used to link up the two. It's a very tricky issue, but that would be how it could possibly unfold.
All right, thank you. Dr. Maughan, we have consistently heard that in order to effectively foster the adoption of blockchain solutions to supply chain problems, there must be a common set of standards, and we've addressed that somewhat here today, that are globally recognized. How can such standards be promulgated and adopted?
First is the development of those standards, which we're working on with some of our partners. But then I think it's an education game. As you can tell, we're fairly early on in the blockchain world, and it becomes up to companies like Maersk and UPS as they use it to educate others. And as and I think we are in a leading position within the world, that we, the U.S., can take a leadership role and continue to push blockchain and educate people on the use of it.
So you agree that the U.S. should lead that charge?
I certainly believe we should take a leadership role. I don't know if we're going to be out in front because you can't do a blockchain by yourself, right? I mean, what we want to do is have this conversation both government to government and have a conversation with our government partners so that they are also on board, because it is a global community.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Byer.